Hi there. It's day 259 of our chronological Bible reading. And so we have read the book of Daniel from chapter 4 to chapter 6. To those who would like to join our chronological Bible reading, you may visit my social media accounts. You can find them on my YouTube channel. So, like this one, just look at the description box at the bottom and then click on show more here, right? Click on show more, just scroll downwards and there you go. So you see my Twitter, truth insight underscore, my Instagram, truth.insight, and my Facebook page at truth insight 2020. On these social media accounts, you will find what book to read and what chapters for the day. Now, let's share what we've learned. Here in chapter 4, we've learned what happened to the king. So he had a dream, and then he asked all he thinks who are capable of telling him his own dream and what it means, but nobody could, right? And so he called on um, Daniel, and then Daniel told him what it meant. So let's just scroll on to verse 32. So Daniel told him what it meant. But before that, let's look at what Daniel told him. So this is Daniel, right? I wish the events foreshadowed in this dream would happen to your enemies, my lord, and not to you. The tree you saw was growing very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves and was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade and birds nested in its branches. That tree, your majesty, is you, for you have grown strong and great. Your greatness reaches up to heaven and your rule to the ends of the earth. Then you saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump and the roots in the ground, bound with a band of iron and bronze and surrounded by tender grass. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the animals of the field for 7 periods of time. Now, this is what the king's dream meant, according to Daniel. This is what the dream means, your majesty, and what the Most High has declared will happen to my lord the king. You will be driven from human society and you will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow and you will be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means that you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules. King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Perhaps then you will continue to prosper. And then what happened after? But all these things did happen to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, "Look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor." So what happened now? He became proud with himself. While these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way, until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses." That same hour the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched with the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. So it's like he lost his sanity, right? And then after this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised and worshiped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever. So there you go. So it happened. So here, uh, going back to verse 32, here, let's just highlight verse 32 here. You will be driven from the human society, so you will be punished. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way. She will be punished until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. So it is important for us to be humble, right? Let's humble ourselves and know that God is our master. Now, moving on to the next chapter. So that chapter 5, writing on the wall. So it happened to his successor, right? So many years later, King Belshazzar gave a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles. He drank wine with them while Belshazzar was drinking wine. So this is the successor, right? Belshazzar. He gave orders to bring in the gold and silver cups that his predecessor Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. He wanted to drink from them with his nobles, his wife, and his concubines. So they brought these gold cups taken from the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. While they drank from them, they praised their idols made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, they saw fingers of a human hand writing on the plaster wall of the king's palace. So they saw handwriting. So again, this king called Daniel, right? So this king called Daniel, and um, By the way, he knew about Daniel because the queen mother, right, told him about it. So here, it's the mother talking. Long live the king. Don't be so pale and frightened. There is a man in your kingdom who has within him the spirit of the holy gods during Nebuchadnezzar's reign. This man was found to have insight, understanding, and wisdom like that of gods. So he called Daniel, right? And then Daniel explains the writing. So now, uh, so basically what happened here, the same as what happened to uh, the first king, the previous king, Nebuchadnezzar, right? So let's jump to verse 23 and let's see what happened here. So verse 23, 22, you are his successor, O Belshazzar, and you knew all this, yet you have not humbled yourself, for you have proudly defied the Lord of heaven, and have had these cups from his temple brought before you. You and your nobles and your wives and concubines have been drinking wine from them while praising gods of silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, gods that neither see nor hear nor know anything at all. But you have not honored the God who gives you the breath of life and controls your destiny. So God has sent this hand to write this message. So that's the message there. So that very night, Belshazzar, the Babylonian king, was killed. Right? So Daniel's interpretation of the message was true, and then Darius became the king. So uh, moving to the next chapter, chapter 6. So now Daniel in the lion's den. So this Darius now, actually, Darius knew about Daniel. Unfortunately, other people became envious of Daniel, so they made this scheme to so that Daniel would get into trouble. All right. So in the end, Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. Let's jump to verse 20. So after he was sent to the den of lions, very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered, Long live the king! My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouth so that they would not hurt me, for I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, Majesty. The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, nor for he had trusted in his God. Then the king gave orders to arrest the men who had maliciously accused Daniel. He had them thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children. So that's what happened. So God really takes good care of his children. That's all for today. See you again next time.